Hey guys, welcome back. So now this will be my spoiler talk video for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where I go a bit deeper into my thoughts about the film and also where my mind went after seeing certain things in this movie, which gave me other ideas for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which of course includes the Disney Plus shows. So with that said, that's pretty much your spoiler warning from here moving forward. But also, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so jumping into this, just to let you know, I'm not going specifically in order from start to finish, because this isn't really so much of a breakdown, but rather me sharing some thoughts. But even with that said, I do want to start from the beginning, because when we jump in with America Chavez in this version of Doctor Strange, who I believe they're going with just as Defender Strange, and I say that mainly because of the toy and not because this guy was any kind of Defender in this movie. Because for this Strange, when it came down to that moment where he was getting ready to sacrifice America Chavez for the greater good of the multiverse, and you could tell at this point that this thing was gonna get him, but I'll admit, with the way that he was stabbed in the leg just before he was impaled in the chest, when I was watching it, I thought it would be this Doctor Strange who would come back later to be that zombie Strange that we'd seen in the trailer. But I'm glad that it did not play out that way, but instead with us seeing the MCU 616 Doctor Strange, and that's a whole nother thing right there, the 616, we'll talk about that. But with us seeing him use this body in order to make his way to Mount Wundagore, and for me that solution came off to be a more Doctor Strange-like thing to do, even though the trailers made a lot of things to seem like they would play out differently. But with him repurposing this body later in the film, I do like that it played out that way, especially when Strange started to lose control and the Christine Palmer from Earth 838, she told him something along the lines of, "You're the master of the mystic arts, and these souls of the damned that are trying to pull you down, use them to your advantage." To where then he took these souls of the damned that were trying to pull him down into darkness and repurpose them into his zombie cloak of levitation to lift him to the throne room of Mount Wundagore. Which for me was just a small moment that had me like, that's why this guy is Doctor Strange. Or at least 616 Doctor Strange. But we'll get to that. But also in the beginning, where we saw America Chavez by herself at this point going for the Book of Ashanti, I also noticed how this film oversimplified the Book of Ashanti, but also in a way repurposed it as the Book of the Good versus the Darkhold as the Book of the Bad. And I didn't mind that at all, because I truly believe for the average moviegoer, had this film went into a deep dive about the actual Ashanti and their history, then that would have pulled most people too far from where this film was trying to go. But I will say I find it a bit strange that Doctor Strange had only believed for this book to be a myth when America Chavez mentioned it to him, to where then Wong, the Sorcerer Supreme, was like, yeah, it's actually a thing. But also with us discovering that this whole beginning sequence had come off to 616 Doctor Strange as just a dream, and that had me thinking of the rumors and everything that were going around for a while about Nightmare being in this film. And even though at this point those talks have gone like radio silent because Nightmare wasn't directly portrayed in this film, but in the defense of those theory crafters, I will say that with the way that America Chavez explained that every dream that people have, that these things are actually happening in alternate universes, and this concept in itself had me thinking that this could be a bit of foreshadowing for Nightmare to be brought in somewhere way down the line, who we may discover at some point in time that Nightmare has been in the MCU intentionally choosing what nightmares people see in order to pull strings across the multiverse, with him witnessing all of the darkest moments that have been seen on screen and off screen, which again is just another thing that had crossed my mind. But also around this time when America was convincing Doctor Strange about his dream being something that had actually happened, to where then he was like, okay, yeah, prove it. And again, when they buried this body, initially I thought Defender Strange was gonna come back as a zombie himself, but then with watching this film, I completely forgot about this corpse by the time it got to the third act. But one of the things that I noticed as far as like the reviews, which to my surprise were mixed reviews, but one of the things that I noticed frequently was that a number of people felt like this portrayal of Wanda in this film, that it had somehow veered away from the conclusion of Wandavision, which I'd have to disagree with, because in that last episode, at the very end, we saw her looking for her children with the Darkhold. So as the viewer, we knew that she hadn't given up, and that is exactly where she picks up in this film. And I mean, it takes Doctor Strange a minute to figure it out. When Wanda slipped up and said the girl's name, America, which is what then set the stage for Wanda to just tell Doctor Strange to hand the girl over. And to me, this seemed very much like a continuation of what the MCU Scarlet Witch Witch would have done. Because again, like we talked about in a Wandavision video, once upon a time, MCU Scarlet Witch is essentially lore. And I got a link below if you want to check out the video where I go way more into depth about it. But to summarize it here, Wanda's arc from Wandavision and Doctor Strange 2, it's essentially been the story of Lore, who is another variant of Wanda that made her way to the 616 in order to take over the body of that Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. But of course in the MCU, Lore was actually the Scarlet Witch, and it was her looking to take the place of another Wanda. But essentially it's the same story. But from here we jump over to Kamar-Taj, and we're kind of going in order but kind of not. But at this point where Strange brought America here to protect her from Wanda, and like I pointed out before, I was excited that Rintrah was here. But I'd also thought that with around this time the Cloak of Levitation getting damaged, which was later fixed by Earth 838 Christine Palmer, but I thought at this point in the film we would have either got a mention of Enith Arman as far as a name drop for who would possibly fix the cloak later on. And even though he's not the weaver who made the Cloak of Levitation, he's the one who repaired it, and upon the completion of its repair, he sent his apprentice to return the cloak to Doctor Strange, which is how Rintrah and Doctor Strange had initially met. But I also understand, given the circumstance, that there really wasn't enough time to cram these different story beats into the film since Doctor Strange and America had to leave here so quickly. But speaking of that, with the way that Wanda broke down their defenses by whispering in that one dude's ear, striking fear in his heart just after Wong told these guys to fortify their minds, that one dude turned out to be the weakest link and she spotted him, and that costed a ton of these guys their lives. But this scene led to a number of sick moments, with Wanda coming after America like a classic horror film. And it also gave us moments like Strange using what appeared to be the Vipers of Valtor, which as far as I can remember, the Vipers were more so something that either Clea or Mordo would summon. And as far as Doctor Strange, the Vapors of Valtor was something that he would use in order to shroud an opponent rather than just attack them fiercely. But I guess in this moment, he made an exception for Wanda. But before I move forward and just brush over this whole mirror scene, because yo, when Wanda made her way out of here, just before that scuffle, and she contorted out of that reflection, and I was just like, yes, this puts a smile on my face. But from there, going into the scuffle to Doctor Strange snatching America through her own portal, this tossed him through a number of realities. And I'm not going to pick apart each one, but I will say, when they passed through the one where it looked like we saw the Living Tribunal, and not just one but a ton of them for some reason. And this leads me to think that because there's only one Living Tribunal within the multiverse, that it's possible that this perspective of the Living Tribunal may have looked this way because they were dashing through a portion of the nexus of all realities, with there seeming to be a number of circles in the background as well. And if this is the case, it would draw a close comparison to Quasar issue 50, to where at the time we traveled to a cartoon universe and we went to another which had cowboys and dinosaurs. I mean, we saw dinosaurs in the film, just no cowboys. But in this portion of the nexus of all realities, you're able to simultaneously see a number of dimensions, whether 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and usually within this space, which is also called the Nexus Interzone, you would encounter beings from other realities or pocket dimensions, or just completely different publishers, and they would be known as your Nexus Guardians. But with watching this film, it had me thinking, like, instead of us seeing Ren and Stimpy or Starro or Spawn for that matter, and that the reason that we may have seen the Living Tribunal within this space is because for the MCU, he is the one and only Nexus Guardian. And the whole appearance of multiple Living Tribunals, that could have just been how he appeared to America and Strange within this one space where multiple realities can be viewed. But then again, it's just a theory, something that crossed my mind. Take with it a grain of salt. But with them arriving on Earth 838, you guys know, I couldn't help but think of Devil's Reign when we got that Into the Autoverse story, when Otto Octavius visited Earth 2902, and everything, including the city, was just so green. And towards that ending, we got our Man-Thing, Spider-Man, Otto Octavius amalgamation. And of course, I'm not saying that there's a connection, but that did cross my mind, because Earth 838 was really just something made for the films, rather than it mirroring an actual designation from the comics. But while they're here, when they run into Bruce Campbell's cameo as Pizza Papa, who reminds Strange and America that the pizza here ain't free, to where then Doctor Strange just makes him attack himself with his own hand. And this is one of those things to where obviously it's a Evil Dead 2 reference. But given the context of Doctor Strange 2, I couldn't help but imagine that Pizza Papa at some point had a nightmare that he was Ash from Evil Dead and that all of this had happened to him before, which in this case would have been another reality, but still, it would have been crazy if he had that nightmare, to only then wake up this day and have Doctor Strange make it a reality. But with moving forward, like when America and Doctor Strange make their way to the Sanctum Sanctorum, another thing crossed my mind. Because when they saw the statue that said Doctor Strange had sacrificed himself in order to save the world when he had defeated Thanos, and for a moment, just for a moment, this made me think that our Doctor Strange, 616 Doctor Strange, had lied when he told Tony that his death was the only way. But of course I threw all of that out the window when the Illuminati told us what really happened. But after this, when Baron Karl Mordo came outside, and I'm sorry, all I could think of is Doctor Strange screaming, "Carl!" disrespectfully of course. But with Baron Mordo of 838 greeting Doctor Strange and America and being super nice, I was very skeptical the whole time and not really surprised when he set them up to deliver them to the rest of the Illuminati. But also around this time when we got that moment when the Scarlet Witch was using the Darkhold and doing her dream walking, and we got to look at the other Wanda's experience with getting her mind taking over. And again, so much of this just kept taking me back to that 1994 Scarlet Witch miniseries, when at that time 616 Wanda discovered a predatory variant of herself who she had previously seen in a nightmare that initially appeared to her in the form of a creature. But when this creature tore its face off, it was revealed to Wanda that this creature, who we'd later find out was Lore, was coming for her. And even though in that film we didn't get the perspective of Earth 838 Wanda for an extended amount of time to really show us like how well she understood what was happening, with the Scarlet Witch coming after her, much like Lore going after Wanda. But for me, I couldn't help but see the comparisons that had me just thinking of Lore flying through the sky and making her way to the West Coast Avengers and just attacking them one by one like something straight out of a horror film. And so when I say things like this is Lore getting her own movie rather than the Scarlet Witch, this is what I'm talking about. But even with me saying that, I do have to say that Lore went much easier on the West Coast Avengers, both with her attacks and the demons that she sent after them. She went way easier on these guys than the Scarlet Witch did in Doctor Strange 2, in the case of Defender Strange, the students of Kamar-Taj, and definitely the Illuminati. Goodness, but we'll get to that. But as far as the Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange 2, with her taking over the other Wanda, to where soon after Sarah revealed that she was alive and she destroyed that version of the Darkhold, which was a moment that definitely made me gasp, like wow. But this was only then followed by Rintrah being tortured, and in this scene I was just like, please Wanda, don't kill Rintrah. Like let him live, you can take the others, because I need Rintrah in the MCU moving forward, please. But with Wong doing what he needed to do to save Rintrah's life, which to me was the subtitle of this movie, you know, saving Rintrah. But with this bringing us to the point to where Wong told Wanda, or the Scarlet Witch, that what she had was only a copy of the Darkhold, which is what then took the two of them to Mount Wundagore, to where in the MCU the inscriptions on the wall of this temple are the true Darkhold, rather than the true Darkhold book like we'd seen in Marvel Comics, which recently we talked about where it was absorbed by Wanda, which also has me thinking with the way that this film ended that there's countless ways to come to a conclusion that Wanda is not dead. But from here going back over to Doctor Strange, with him and America waking up in their restraints, to where then this Earth 838's Christine Palmer let them know that they're in the Baxter building. And when she said that in the theater, you can hear people kind of like, oh, whoa, 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 like here it comes. But also throughout the conversation of this Christine and Doctor Strange, we discovered more about the Earth designations, with this Earth being Earth 838 and the Earth that our Doctor Strange is from was 616. And when I heard that, I was kind of like, okay, I guess Marvel's really sticking with that, because we heard it from Mysterio and Spider-Man Far From Home. And to be honest, I still have my suspicions about his guy who wrote that for him. Like we're gonna find out one day that that was really like Mystique or something. But we also got the reference in the Loki TV show as far as the main universe being the 616, but now it just seems super solidified that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, instead of being Earth 199999, it's instead just the Cinematic Earth 616. And I guess that's cool, but really I'd rather it have a different designation, but really that's neither here or there. But with Baron Mordo coming to get Strange and take him to the other members of the Illuminati, this is the part where everybody sat forward, slapped their hands together and started rubbing them like, okay, what we got here? But really for the most part, what people had put together from the trailers, they were pretty much spot on. Because for the members of the Illuminati, we got live action Captain Carter, who's a variant of the Captain Carter from the Disney Plus What If show. We got Maria Rambeau, who in this universe became Captain Marvel rather than Carol Danvers. We got Barry Mordo, who had taken the place as Sorcerer Supreme after the 838 Doctor Strange had died. We got Anson Mount, who returned as Black Bolt, but this time with a way better design, because back when he did the Inhumans show on ABC, it was pre-Disney Plus, and even though Disney owns ABC, they were not cutting checks for TV shows back then like they are now. But aside from Black Bolt, we also got Patrick Stewart back as Charles Xavier, but this time in the chair from X-Men the Animated Series. And as if the chair wasn't enough, they put him in the same suit, with the same tie, they play a version of the X-Men the Animated Series music, and there's a moment here where he shows Doctor Strange what really happened to the Doctor Strange of Earth 838 and how he really wasn't a hero. And when Charles shows this memory to 616 Doctor Strange, before the flashback begins, they show Charles's powers using the same blue wavy circles from the cartoon, which right there just had me ready to fall out. Cause back in the 90s, I was that kid eating Pizza Hut as much as possible just to collect some VHS tapes with a limited edition comic along with a limited edition X-Men card that I could take to school just to tell the other kids like, you ain't up on this. But then aside from Charles, we then see, last but not least, Reed Richards, played by John Krasinski. And when I saw this, I was just like, wow, the fans have truly willed this into existence. But it was also around this time that Reed Richards and the others were telling 616 Doctor Strange about what happened with their Doctor Strange as well as the incursion. But from here throughout the rest of the film, because they mention incursion so many times, and it's like this along with what we'd seen in the Loki series, that really makes it seem that we're gonna get both Time Runs Out and Secret Wars in the MCU at one point. And I mean, in a way, we've already had a number of moments in the MCU that have taken away parts of Time Runs Out as well as Secret Wars, but with what's building up here, it seems to be the real deal. Fingers crossed. But during this conversation, going back to Charles showing Doctor Strange what happened to 838 Doctor Strange and how he wasn't really a hero and why the Illuminati believed that they needed to kill him after they had all defeated Thanos using the Book of Ashanti. And in this moment where we see Reed Richards holding what appears to be 838 Doctor Strange's Cloak of Levitation, and I noticed that this one is blue, which then had me thinking, okay, that's where Christine Palmer got the blue patch to put on the 616 Cloak of Levitation to repair it after the damage that Wanda had caused. But even with us knowing that this Christine Palmer has history with her Doctor Strange from Earth 838, as well as some knowledge she may have collected from Baron Karl Mordo, but even still, I can't help but think of the attempts that have been made in the comics to repair the Cloak of Levitation when it was attempted by someone who wasn't a Weaver, including Doctor Strange himself, because every time it would just result in a mess. But this is one of those situations where you just gotta kind of roll with it for the sake of the movie. But back to the Illuminati. When Wanda got there and these guys tried to stop her, with her now using the True Dark Hold to dreamwalk through 838 Wanda, but man, the way these guys went out, it broke my heart. Black Bolt had his mouth taken because Reed just had to tell Wanda what Black Bolt could do, only to then have Black Bolt speak, collapsing his skull, which right away had me like, wait man, like Black Bolt's been trained, like ever since he killed his parents, he's been trained not to make a sound in the most traumatic situations. But I guess for this Black Bolt, nothing prepared him for this. But the deaths from here just kept rolling. Reed Richards got unraveled and his head popped. Captain Carter was cut in half with her own shield. Maria Rambeau was stripped of her shields or what seemed to be her power completely, and she got completely crushed, only for us then to see Charles attempt to go into Wanda's mind and just die again on the big screen. And when this happened, it really felt like just another story out of the Darkhold, from the Darkhold 2021 series, with these events being someone else's worst nightmare. But yeah, from there, for me, I was kind of just at loss for the rest of the film, and I was just thinking, man, Wanda is a monster. But aside from this, there were other moments that I did enjoy, like the battle between both Stranges when they fought each other using the music notes, which was brilliant. But I'm not gonna front, for a moment I thought of Jamie Foxx, and I have to say this, but I imagined the Jamie Foxx Electro, and not from No Way Home, but I'm talking about the first go round, when him and Andrew Garfield had their musical fight scene. And initially with Doctor Strange, I was just thinking, oh man, please don't be corny, mixing music with the fight. But with how it turned out, it was awesome, and I couldn't help but imagine Jamie Foxx Electro telling Doctor Strange, when you do it, you become a hero, but when I do it, I become the enemy. And somehow that version of Electro just not thinking that the whole thing was fair. But yeah, all in all, I enjoyed the film, and to me it made sense that in the end, Wanda had to defeat herself, because America Chavez going for that punch and everything, I wasn't buying that, especially after what Wanda did to the Illuminati. But this film has got me excited for what's coming next for Doctor Strange in the MCU, with the third eye showing up from his corruption from using the Darkhold, much like the other version of Strange that we'd seen, but I couldn't imagine that corruption growing, since Wanda had destroyed the true Darkhold, as well as every copy of the Darkhold throughout the multiverse. But I'd like to see where the story goes with that third eye. And in the mid-credit scene with us getting Clea, the niece of Dormammu, as well as the better choice for the love interest for Doctor Strange, I mean, let's be honest, but I like that we at least saw her in the mid-credit scene, because to me at least, it's an indication that the next installment of Doctor Strange is only going to get stranger, and it'll also continue to build on top of the narrative of another upcoming incursion, which in this case she said was caused by Doctor Strange. And on top of that, it was nice to see Bruce Campbell 3 weeks later finally not beating himself up anymore. But yeah, that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know all of your spoiler thoughts and theories down in the comments, or even over on Discord, and you'll find that link down in the description. But also let me know if this video sparked any ideas, thoughts, or theories for you that you probably weren't thinking of prior to this point. Because regardless of those who didn't like this film for whatever reason, it has left us with a ton of things to talk about as far as what could be next in the MCU. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below so we can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.